Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Alhamdulillah, tonight is the start of our discussion on the last chapter of my book, chapter 6, which we're going to talk about seven earth. After this chapter, then will be, of course, discussions on tafsir and hadith, which is not part of our cosmic creation discussions, just to add value or add information and knowledge to those who wants to know more on how Al-Quran and tafsir is being classified and so forth. But we're going to start on seven earth. Now, why seven earth? Why we talk about seven earth? It is because we can find the word seven earth, or not directly specifically the word seven is there, but it can be implied that there are seven earth from the Quran itself. And the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned in a hadith about seven earth. Now, the notion of seven earth, or there are seven earth, more than one earth, the notion of this notion is only can only be found in Islam. You cannot find the notion of seven earth or more than one earth in any other religions, be it Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, and what more other religions. Okay, so only Islam, right, very unique in its mentioning about the existence of more than one earth, and that is why I dedicated the last chapter of my book on the seven earth, even though it has nothing to do with the creation of the cosmos itself, but it has to do with, indirectly we will see later on the existence of the seven heavens. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, furthermore, Allah mentions this seven earth in connection with the seven heavens. Now, let's explore that verse of the Quran and also the hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then there is only one verse of the Quran that mentions indirectly the existence of seven earth, and that is in Surah Talaq, verse 12. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawati wa minal ardi mithlahun. Which means Allah is He who created seven heavens, sab'a samawat. Wa minal ardi, and of the earth, mithlahun, the like of them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the existence of this earth, and this earth is similar to the seven heavens in one verse. So mentions the seven heavens and also mentions the earth, which is like the seven heavens in that particular verse. And you cannot find any other verses in the Quran that mentions about the existence of more than one earth, except in Surah Az-Zumar, Allah SWT mentions about the existence of another earth in the hereafter, but that has nothing to do with the cosmic creation, because Allah mentions in that verse, يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ, which means on that day, which is on the judgment day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace this existence earth, this current earth, with another earth, and with the current universe with another universe similar to this universe. So Allah mentions the existence of another earth, but in another context, which is after the destruction of this whole cosmos or this whole physical universe. So we can safely ignore that verse because nothing to do with the creation of the seven heavens and the existence of seven earth. So this seven earth, right, mentions in one verse in the Quran, and indirectly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trying to imply or trying to tell us that yes, there are seven earth, because this earth, they are like the seven heavens, but it can be more than that. We're going to explore that later on. Now, the hadith that I mentioned, it is only one hadith in the Quran that's authentic enough that we can take it, that mentions about seven earth. There is no other hadith at that authenticity level that mentions about the seven earth. Now, this hadith narrated by Imam Bukhari and Muslim, The Prophet ﷺ said here, "Man zalama min al-ardi shay'a tuwiqahu min sab'i aradin." Whoever usurps the land of somebody unjustly, usurps means take it unjustly. Yeah, just take a piece of land or whatever belongs to another person unjustly on this earth, his neck will be encircled with that land down to the seventh earth. So we can't imagine, right? The punishment awaiting those who grab land that belongs to other people unjustly, and there are a lot of land grabbers in this world. From time immemorial to the future, people always want to grab land and they justify it with what? I'm smart, so I will take it. So might is right because I'm powerful. So I just take the land, or I can just cheat people. As long as I do it legally, even though it's cheating, then it's still okay. But the fact happens that they grab the land, and the Prophet ﷺ warned him, whoever grabs land, that piece of land, how big it is, it can be huge, can be small, but that piece of land, the weight of that land will be put on that person's neck, and that piece of land will bring that person down to the seventh earth. Now, clearly, this hadith does not refer to punishment on this life, in this life and on this earth, because you can never see any people who grab lands unjustly being punished like that. They live happily ever after, not happily ever after that. They can, they go on with their life without being punished, and even they get rich, right? They cheat people. Just look at, people like Donald Trump, right? Grab land, right, from other people unjustly, cheat people, this and that. Is he being punished? No, he lives just like that, happily, still a billionaire. So clearly, this hadith mentions about punishment awaiting these people in the hereafter. And therefore, in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ. On that day, this earth, the current earth, will be replaced with another earth, and these people, all of us, will be gathered on the plains of that new earth, and these people will be punished, right? And with that piece of land, and bring down to the seventh earth, and we do not know, right, on that day, how that earth will be, and how different that earth will be from our current earth, because that day of judgment, after this whole universe is destroyed, the laws of physics will surely be different from our current laws of physics in this physical universe. What we know from the laws of physics in this universe is particular to our limit of knowledge, right? It's particular to just this universe. Other universes, or even the hereafter, the laws might be different, right? This universe, the laws of physics is that heat travels from a higher temperature to a lower temperature, from a higher energy state to a lower energy state. That is the laws of physics in this universe. But in the hereafter, it might be different. The heat will travel from lower energy state to the higher energy state. Who said it's not possible? Anything is possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this universe, there's a limit to speed, and that is the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers per second. But in other universe, or in the hereafter, the laws of physics might be different. There's no limit to the speed limit. In this universe, there's a limit to the lowest temperature possible. That is minus 273 degrees Celsius, minus 273 degrees Celsius. You cannot go lower than that. That is 0 Kelvin. You put as Kelvin, right? That is the lowest temperature possible in this universe. But in other universes, or in the hereafter, the laws of physics might be different. There is no limit to the coldness, and there's no limit to the hotness. So we cannot actually use this hadith, this particular hadith, Bukhari and Muslim, to refer to our current universe and our earth, right? It has no reference at all, no link at all. So it's just now we are limited to just that particular verse in the Quran, Surah Talaq, verse 12, that talks about 7 universes, and we know that 7 universes, right, is existing, right? They are existing right now, and they started from the moment of the Big Bang, and we have already discussed that, quite a lot in our previous, sessions. And Allah SWT mentions that the earth are also like the seventh earth, the seventh universe. So now the keyword is mithlahun, the like of them. What do you mean by the like of them? That is where, right, the scholars try to give their own interpretation on what it means by mithlahun, the like of them. Is it the like in their characteristics, similar to the seven heavens characteristics, or similar to just the numbers? Now, majority of past scholars or even current scholars, right, they took it that mithlahun, the like of them, right, is similar to just the numbers. Majority, vast majority of them. I will share it later on. Some other interpretations. So there are seven universes, and therefore there are seven earth. So now you know where the seven earth came from. It's never mentioned the word seven in the Quran with regards to the number of earth, but it is the interpretation by majority of scholars. Okay, and furthermore, Rasulullah mentions about seven earth in the hadith of Bukhari Muslim, but we know that there is no connection to our discussion. All right, so these are the two sources from Islamic sources with regards to seven earth. Okay, so in numbers only or in numbers and characteristics, can be both. Now, when we talk about in numbers, okay, in numbers and also in numbers and characteristics, past scholars, they try to give some interpretations, their own interpretations based on what these mithlahun or similar to the seven heavens are. Okay, so for example, you can find, right, in the books of tafsir, past scholars, they interpret seven earth as seven piece of land, huge land on one huge ocean covered by one huge celestial sphere. So this has to be this comes about from that famous story that I shared with you a number of times, right? The traditional story that talks about the creation of the heavens and the earth, which we already debunked, and we already knew that it came from the Christian sources or Jewish sources. That talks about, the start of creation is just water, and then water evaporated and become all the seven heavens, and got differentiated into seven layers from that steam water. So every layer of heavens, there are oceans of water. Okay, so we have our first layer, which is the blue thing that we see up there. Beyond that blue thing is ocean. That's why it's blue, because it's water up there, right? Because that's a transparent thing, but nighttime you can't see because it's dark. And then after that ocean will be another earth, will be another heavens, and then after that oceans, and then another heavens, and all the way up to the seven heavens and all the seven oceans. Now we go back to the first layer, which is the ocean. They say that the water evaporated, and then after that the water parted, and there appeared seven lands. Seven lands, and these are the seven earth. And now, right, this ocean is on this, inside this ocean, there's a huge fish, and at least our land, the land that is earth itself, right, that piece of land might be somewhere we do not know where, but this land is on top of that fish, and that fish move, and then because of that there are earthquakes, and so blah 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 and so on. But there are seven lands appearing from that vast ocean, and according to that story, right, each of these lands, they are disconnected from each other because we cannot sail to that piece of land because the ocean is vast. There is no sailing ship that can go through there. As much as if we sail and sail and sail and sail, we reach to the end of the ocean and we will fall over to don't know what oblivion. So that is a story, right? Of course, we know it is nonsense story. It's a false story. It is just a fantasy from people in the past, right? So scholars, they are human beings also. They are not immune to, very creative imagination. So that's how they imagine. So seven earth on a flat surface, right, horizontally, floating on that ocean. And at least our earth is on top of that big fish, or even all the seven earth, they are on top of that big fish. That's the story. Now, this is one interpretation. Right? Fantastic interpretation. There's another interpretation on what those 7 earths are. If you look at the books of Tafsir, they also mention that 7 earths, they are not horizontal, but they are vertical, just like, flat. Our HDB flat lah, all the 7 stories. So it's like this, right? There are 2 models actually for the vertical arrangements of this earth. Model number 1 is that it starts with our earth. This is where we reside, we live, right? And our air is here. So that blue yonder up there is our heaven. And beyond that, after that ocean of the first heaven is the second earth. And then above that second earth is the second heaven. And then above that second heaven, just immediately after the second heaven is another ocean. And then after that ocean, floating on that ocean is another earth. And then we have the third heaven for that third earth, and all the way up to the 7th earth. And beyond the 7th earth is the, on top of the 7th earth is the 7 heavens. And beyond the 7 heavens is the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is model number 1. And we know that this is not true, right? Because, that blue thing up there is just, colors from light. It's not something that is solid. It's not a color of the ocean that exists on our heaven or the first heaven. So this model, of course, is wrong, but I just share with you because, even though we know that this is not right, but don't be surprised that there are, scholars and Muslims, right, who read these books and hold these ideas as if these ideas they came from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this is the truth in Islam. But this is just an attempt by people in the past trying to understand what it means by the 7th earth. And I'm going to share with you, right? They are also based on a hadith also, which already discussed previously. I'm going to share that hadith again with you after this. This is model number 1. Now, model number 2, right? All right. Likeness in numbers and characteristics. Okay. Differentiated into 2. Ours is the first earth, and below us are all the lower earth, right to the 7th earth. So if we dig down, we can find the second earth. If we continue digging, we're going to find the 3rd earth, 4th earth, and 7th earth. And all these earth, they are populated by creatures, probably another human beings or whatever. And that is also the notion of, some science fiction stories or novels written by people in the past, like Jules Verne, for example. He wrote about journeys to the center of the earth, and these interpret explorers, when they went down and they found that, oh well, there are oceans and dinosaurs and animals right under the earth itself with their own stars and suns and this and that. Of course, those are science fiction stories, right? But you see, these stories are already being made popular by some scholars in the past, and they put it inside the tafsir books, and that is why scholars, until some of them still hold fast to this notion, this idea that the 7th earth is below us. And that is why, they say that, look at the hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Bukhari and Muslim mentions that those who take land, grab land unjustly, they will be punished and be brought down to the 7th earth, and that is below us, right? But they forget that that hadith mentions about the punishment in the hereafter, not in this world, not in this life. So nothing to do with 7th earth under us. There's 7th earth, even if they exist, right, it might be on that, that new earth that Allah will create in the hereafter, or will be in another earth in hell. We do not know, right? We just leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So 7th earth. And that is why there is a notion among some Muslims that beyond the 7th earth, if you dig down, there are 7th earth, and beyond the 7th earth is hell. So hell is below us. And they justify, and they of course do not justify. They spread this nonsense stories through WhatsApp, through emails, that there was the effort by the Soviet scientists in the 1980s, Soviet Union. There was a country where the name was Soviet Union. I think people who are my age, they know better. huge country, Soviet Union, broke up into several countries. Right now, we have Russia and all other smaller countries. But previously, they were united in what they call as Soviet Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR. So the Soviet scientists, they dig a very deep hole. You can do some research in the internet about this. About I'm not sure. I think about how many kilometers deep? I think about 4-5 kilometers deep, something like that. Right? They dig and dig and dig and dig until to the point that they stop digging because it is not feasible for them to dig further because their drill bit, as they go deeper and deeper, this drill bit becomes very crumbly, very soft because the metal is not solid anymore. It becomes like a plastic like that. So it's possible for them to dig further because of the heat under the earth. But people start to spread the stories that they stop digging because why? Because they reach the door of hell. And once they reach the door of hell, they heard voices of people being punished, right? Shouting, screaming, this and that. And then they created that sound, that story. And unfortunately, right, the people who created it, they are Christians. Because Christians believe that hell is under the earth, this earth. Under us is hell, they said. Above us is heaven. So if you do good, you go and fly up there, and then you're going to be among the angels, the clouds playing harps and this and that, floating around. But if you've been punished, you're being pulled down, and the one is going in control of hell is the devil itself, and the devil has almost similar power to God. That is the Christian belief. Not Islamic belief, of course, that is shirk. Unfortunately, some Muslims never know better, none the wiser. They took it that Islam is also like that. So they said, oh, Muslims, the Soviet scientists have reached the doors of hell, and that's why all these stories of people being punished, but not hell, but it is, punishment inside the grave, Alam Barzakh. Utter nonsense. Bonkers theory, right? Is just a figment of imagination and naughty people trying to deceive other people. And there are a lot of naughty people out there, right, spreading lies and conspiracy theories and falsehoods and such, just to have some laugh at people who believe in such falsehood. They created this just because they want to see how many stupid people are there who falls into their stupid stories. So don't be among those who falls into these stupid stories, being laughed at by these people. So anyway, right, this is another theory being proposed by scholars in the past, and so the seven heavens are there. But it is not just theory for them. They did not create it from thin air. Apparently, this model 1 and model 2 actually came from the hadith, which I already discussed and critically examined that this hadith, there are two hadith actually, both of them are weak and cannot be relied upon because there are flaws in the chain of narration. And furthermore, the content of the hadith is not what we actually observe right now. It is not congruent. It is not not similar to reality, what we have discovered right now. So these two factors already sufficient proof for us to debunk those hadith or put it aside, and cannot be used to construct this the what do you call it, the theory of 7 heavens and 7 earth, or what these 7 heavens and 7 earth are all about. Now, what are those hadiths? This is the hadith, right? But before that, Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi, he had a different view from all these model 1 and model 2, or even this earth in horizontal plane. According to Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi, he said that the 7 earth are actually the 7 regions of earth. There are no earth, 7 earth like us, but we have only 1 earth but there are 7 regions of the earth, right? Separated all across this earth. But these 7 regions, they are influenced by the 7 wandering celestial bodies, which is the Aristotelian view of the universe. Aristotle and the Greeks, they view that the earth is at the center of the universe and is flat, okay? And the first layer of the celestial sphere, or the first layer of the heaven, is the moon, because we can see the moon is closest to us. Beyond that, the second one is Mercury, and then Venus, and then the fourth one will be the sun. Why the sun is the fourth one? Because according to observation, we can observe both Mercury and Venus, they can transit across the sun's surface. It means that you have the sun, if you observe the sun, right? Mercury and Venus have been observed to move across the sun. There's a small dot, and you can actually observe until now, a small dot moving across the sun. And the ancients observed this using their crude tools, but they know. So therefore, logically, the sun must be behind Mercury and Venus. And so therefore, the sun is heaven, the layer of heavens number 4, the 4th heavens. Then beyond that, Mars, because Mars can be behind the sun, right? They have seen Mars to be, moving behind the sun. So of course, according to them, then Mars will be further than the sun. So it's layer number 5. And then after that, Jupiter layer number 6, and Saturn layer number 7. And beyond that, all those planets that we know of, Uranus and Neptune, they are non-observable with naked eye. You have to use telescopes and powerful telescopes to observe them. So because they are very far. So these 7 celestial bodies, well known to the ancients, and they construct that Earth-centric universal view of the cosmos itself. And because of that, astrologies, they are based on these 7 celestial bodies. So if somebody being born when Venus is in transit with the sun or moon, then it will influence you. So this influence from the celestial bodies to life on earth, somehow or other, right, being taken by some scholars, including Imam Fakhruddin Ar-Razi, which that is wrong because it's based on astrology. But astronomy in the past cannot be separated from astrology. You study astronomy and all those, the calculations, the hard sciences, but somehow or rather it's still being married together with astrology, because people always like to see, you study these things, what are the benefits? The benefits should be for us. So if this moon is here and at that, that position of the sky, so what are the influences for us on this earth? So astronomy could not still being separated from astrology in the past. Only after a few hundred years, then slowly they were divorced. Astrology being a separate, I don't say a body of knowledge, but a separate belief, and astronomy become an independent body of knowledge based on hard sciences and mathematics. So Imam Fakhruddin said there are 7 regions on this earth, but he never elaborated where are those 7 regions on this earth, but each of these regions be influenced by those 7 celestial bodies, which we know is wrong, right? Now, let's go back to these views of 7 heavens and 7 earth, okay? Especially model number 2, it is actually based on this construct actually being taken from the hadith of narrated by Abu Hurairah. And this hadith have been, like I said just now, I've shared already, but we just go through again this hadith. It started with Abu Hurairah narrated this story. He said that once the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, and then there was a cloud that came over them. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked his companions, do you know what is that? Of course, there is cloud, right? We can see that is cloud. But strangely, the companions said, no, only Allah and His Prophet know. Now, if you really know that is cloud, why you tell lies to the Prophet and say, only you know better, I do not know, right? Even though it is part of adab, but if you know something, you have to say that is part of adab. If the Prophet said, you know what is this tree? And if the Prophet ﷺ pointed to the tree of dates, you should say dates is the tree of date. You don't say that Only the Prophet and Allah knows. You only use the word only Allah and His Prophet know for things that you actually do not know. And you cannot speculate. Like for example, if being asked, what is Ruh? Only Allah and the Prophet know. What is heavens? Only Allah and the Prophet knows. What will be happen in the future? Only Allah and the Prophet knows. I do not know. So that is the correct answer. But for things that you know, you won't, the Prophet, the companions, right, in all other hadith never mentions that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet knows. But in this hadith is mentioned that. So that is the first inkling and the first red flag that this hadith something wrong here, problematic, right? Might not be authentic. That's the first red flag. And the Prophet ﷺ said, there is a cloud, of course, right? The giver of water for earth. And Allah sent this cloud to a group of people who do not express gratitude to Him, nor do they pray to Him. So sent to these people. Of course, there are many people who are non-Muslims. Then the Prophet asked, do you know what is above you? And they said, only Allah and His Prophet know. Of course, that is the correct answer, right? We do not, the companions do not know what is above them, above the cloud. What is above the cloud, we do not know, or they do not know, right? We know what is above the clouds, but they do not know. And so the answer, only Allah and His Prophet know. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, it is Ar-Raqi. And I mentioned, I shared with you already. The word Raqi, it is not Arabic term, but it is a term that can be found in the Hebrew Bible. So there's a second red flag, that this hadith is not authentic, it is forged. Most probably, very high certainty that it's a forged hadith, it's a false hadith. Because the Prophet ﷺ, right, somehow or rather used non-Arabic term, then this term is in the, the Hebrew Bible. So it might come from those rabbis or Jewish or Christian scholars, right, who embraced Islam and narrated the story to the companions. And it is well known that among the companions who love to hear the stories from the rabbi, Ka'ab al-Ahbar, and also the Christian priest, Abdullah bin Salam, the one who like to hear most is Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. And that is well known among the scholars of hadith. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu is the only companion who loves to hear the stories from these two people. And that is why, if you would see, right, if you analyze many of these stories, fantastic stories about the creation of the heavens and the earth, and past prophecies and that, and quite similar to the Bible itself, right? You can find that these hadiths, most of them narrated by Abu Hurairah. So it is not something that amazed scholars. Okay? And this hadith is narrated by Imam Abu Hurairah, not by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. So the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, Ar-Raqi. And what is Raqi? A protected roof. So that blue layer above us, according to the hadith, it is a solid thing, a protected roof. And because it is blue, because it is a wave. Because after that is an ocean, right? Like mentioned in that another fantastic stories, but not from the Prophet ﷺ. So, it's all related here and there. So it's a wave prevented from falling on earth. And do you know what is the distance between you and the first heaven? And of course, the companions here in the hadith said, only the Allah and Prophet knows. And the Prophet ﷺ said it, between it and you is a distance of 500 years of travel. So between us and that blue thing is 500 years of travel, which of course we know that's not that true. It is just about 10 kilometers. Even that blue thing is something that is, an illusion. It is not something that is solid. Do you know what is above it? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, above it are two heavens, the distance between 700 years of travel, and continues until the seventh heaven. So every layer is from one heaven to another heaven is 500 years of travel, right? And do you know what is above all of them? And the Prophet ﷺ, above them is a throne, and the distance between the last heaven and the throne is the distance of between two layers of heaven, which is 500 years of travel. So 500 times 7 times 8, you have 40,000 years of travel. And that is, that is smaller than the distance of between Earth to even planet Mars. Because if we travel by, when we assume that this traveling, 500 years of traveling is walking, not using fast horses, but walking. It takes more than 40,000 years to reach planet Mars if you want to walk from Earth to planet Mars, even if you can walk, because the distance is so huge, right? So is the heavens and all the seven heavens so small, confined to just, orbit of Mars? Of course, that's not true. We have sent, spacecraft beyond planet Pluto, and we know that the heaven or the cosmos itself is bigger than what's been perceived by people in the past. So there is another red flag. So many red flags to show that this hadith is not from the Prophet ﷺ. It's a forged hadith. Might be that Abu Hurairah made the mistake, confused it. The story narrated to him by all these Jewish priests and rabbis, and mistook it for Prophet ﷺ. Or if you want to have, husnul dhan with the companion, then some people after Abu Hurairah anhu forged this hadith and attributed it to Abu Hurairah and attributed it to the Prophet ﷺ. Now, so we have, according to this thing, this story is 7 heavens above us, and then under us is 7 earth, because the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith said that, do you know what is under the earth? Only Allah, the Prophet ﷺ knows, and the Prophet ﷺ said, under it is another earth. The distance between them is 700 years of travel, and then it continues to 7 earths. So you have another 35,000 years of travel, right, under us to reach the first layer of the earth. 35,000 years, and it's beyond in the earth, the size of the earth itself. Another red flags, right? So all these are, very clear indicators that this hadith is not true. And so, therefore, from this hadith, right, some scholars constructed that model of 7 heavens above and 7 earth below us. So it is not creation from thin air or figment of their imagination, but it is based on the hadith. And this hadith is the content itself is wrong. And if you look at the chain of narration, the sanad itself, it is also problematic, because this hadith contains one narrator by the name of Al-Hasan bin Yasar. And I did some research on this narrator, Al-Hasan bin Yasar. Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim accepted him as trustworthy, and his name can be found in the both hadith, book of hadith by Bukhari and Muslim. However, Imam Tirmidhi said Al-Hasan did not hear any hadith directly from Abu Hurairah. So Al-Hasan, in all the narrations of Bukhari and Muslim, there are always someone intermediary between Al-Hasan and Abu Hurairah. So Abu Hurairah narrated any hadith that he got from the Prophet ﷺ to this person, and this person narrated to Al-Hasan. But in this hadith, somebody created that chain of narration, and inadvertently, or probably not inadvertently, Allah wants to tell us, right, and as indicated to us, that person who created that chain of narration dropped that intermediary and connected Al-Hasan directly to Abu Hurairah. So whether that person realized or did not realize it, even if the person did not realize it, for me, right, it is, somehow a signal from Allah SWT to tell us that, look, this hadith is problematic. Do not attribute it to my prophet, most beloved prophet, Nabi Muhammad SAW. So the chain of narration itself is problematic. So you have two big problems. The chain of narration is problematic, the content is problematic. Combine them together, that elevates the status of the hadith as being very, very doubtful, and to the point that high uncertainty that it is a work of forgery. Okay, so we can dismiss that hadith, but again, the hadith, being taken by scholars in the past, and they constructed that model. Okay, so these are the ideas or the construct of people in the past. Now, what is the understanding of modern scholars with regards to 7 earth? That I will share with you, inshallah, right, in the next session, because we need a lot more time to discuss that, and we have finished our allotment for tonight. Okay, so we continue next week with the views from contemporary scholars, inshallah. All right, let's see if there are any questions. All right, no questions, alhamdulillah. So I'll meet you all inshallah next week. So thank you very much, and we end with Tasbih Kafara and Surah Al-Asr. Subhanakallah bika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Al-'asri innal fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.